Will South Carolina become bowl eligible? Can Vandy snap that 15-game losing streak they have to the Gamecocks? Well, we're about to find out. It's a crossover. Here we go.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into this crossover edition of the Locked On Vandy podcast and the Locked On Gamecocks podcast. We joined forces on this episode to bring you the greatest preview ever known to man. Joining me is Chris Marler, from the host of the Locked On Gamecocks podcast. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Man, I'm great. Can't complain. But hey, did you know you can start the season with big return on FanDuel? New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. So a few storylines here with this game. It's a very, very intriguing game. One that I didn't think would be this intriguing at the beginning of the season. Vandy has a 15-game losing streak going to South Carolina. Seems like they're cursed at this point. Can't ever seem to get it together. And then South Carolina is looking to become bowl eligible. And at the start of the season, I wasn't quite sure if that was going to happen, but here we are, man. So for South Carolina, Chris, what has really sparked this run of really good play? Have you guys known this for a while and it just took time to develop?
You know, it's crazy because it's like, one, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad we get to do this. Two, it's one of those things where it's like, man, this team could really turn a corner if this, and this went right. And the this, and this was like, stop shooting yourself in the foot on offense. Yeah. Stop doing stupid crap with the football and turning it over. And then really after that, it's I knew the defense was going to be a top 5 defense in the SEC. I felt very confident in that. Coming into the season, Clayton White and his defense had led the SEC in turnovers forced in the last 3 seasons combined with like 68. They continue to be near the top of that. Now, we'll get into it, but that's one of the strengths of Vandy, where they don't turn the football over. So I think that part will be interesting. But it just kept coming back to Lenoir Sellers, and then this offense it really doesn't have a ton of weapons at receiver. Nick Harbor didn't really come around like as much as you thought he would. But I tell you what, watching Shane Beamer be able to get these guys to buy into the program and what they can be, it's been really cool. And I will say this, it's a fan base that it feels like there's a lot of what ifs at the end of the season. The dogs are going to start barking here shortly. I apologize. But like, it feels like it's a fan base that constantly is in a lot of what ifs. Like what if this wouldn't have happened, we could have been this. And like I think that looking at this season, once it's December, it's going to be fun to have a fan base that's going to finally be able to say, man, we could have been 10-2 if this happened, versus because they should have beaten Bama. They should have beaten LSU, but you could also make the case, man, if we're being honest, they could have lost Old Dominion. And they've had some scares there, but they've been a very big, pleasant surprise.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was a team that I felt like in my comment section, this theory's been beaten back. But like, was Shane Beamer ever coming into the season? Was it ever a notion that he could be on the hot seat if things went south, or was I just making that up, or was I just dreaming that?
Did I? I don't think it was you making it up. I do know that like when I started doing the show on July 2nd of this year for Locked On Gamecocks, and I'm like, I'm looking at the national storylines. That was one of the national storylines. Like whether anybody wants to admit it, it definitely was. And you look at it, and then like Carolina fans, he's not going anywhere. I'm like, dude, I didn't put him on the hot seat. This is just what I'm being like. This is what I'm being told. But I think the overall perception of it, if you talk to anyone close to the program, was he's not. He wasn't on the hot seat. He still had enough, honestly, goodwill that he had built up with everyone based off of what happened in 2022 that I think he was going to be okay this year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that has long gone by the wayside with the recent performances. So I was just curious about kind of from y'all's perspective, kind of what that was like, because I was thinking the same thing. Like I thought I saw some of the national pundits are like, hey, this guy's on, Billy Napier, Shane Beamer, Sam Pittman, they were all always lumped together, and like these could be the guys on the move after the season for one reason or the other. But what they've done with this team is incredible, and I really love y'all's two edge guys, Kevin Kennard and Dylan Stewart. Man, those guys they're going to be in the league, man. And they're fun to watch. So from a defensive perspective, when you're looking at Vandy's offense, and I'll probably counter with how we're going to attack y'all's defense and try to navigate those edge guys. But what is South Carolina's plan to stop Vandy? What are y'all seeing?
So I think the biggest thing is this: the most important matchup is, and this is something they had to answer a week ago, which I was a little bit worried about, is South Carolina predominantly this year has played their defense in like 4-2-5 and 3-3-5 flexes and like flex nickel situations where you're going to have a light box and you're going to have, not as much size in that front seven or front six really with the 4-2-5 or the 3-3-5 defense, like I said. And that's fine. Like that's fine because they're so strong on the back end. So a week ago when they played A&M, which was you're going to have to bring down the safeties, you're going to have to bring down Eamon Worry and see if he can play in a phone booth and play in that front seven in the box. And he did. And it went really, really well. So I think they're going to have to do that again. I think the thing that people confuse about Vandy still, and I watched this firsthand with that Alabama game, covering that for Cover Crimson, was people think that game was a fluke because the name on the helmet was Vandy beat Bama, right? Like, that wasn't a fluke. Vandy had a game plan. It was like, listen, they can't score on us if their offense isn't on the field. So let's keep the ball away from them. Let's keep them off the field. And then let's just go run the ball. And I think the thing with Carolina that they do a good job of is like they're very stout up front off the front four guys, especially with the edge, even against the run. But those linebackers and having to cover that tight end, Stowers, that's how you pronounce his name, right? Like that's going to be the biggest matchup of the game is the tight end and then the linebackers on him and then also reading the option as well because it's not a pure option team, high school, Harry, Navy, triple option type deal. Right. But one of the things that Vandy does a better job than almost any team in the SEC and maybe the country is they don't have a lot of third and longs. You don't have a lot of like second and longs. They are consistently in like a 2nd and 3, a 3rd and 2 all the time.
Oh yeah, I mean, and their offensive line they've constructed their offensive line to be able to account for that. Putting guys in conflict has been great. The looks that they present and how many different things and how many different ways they can show you and do the same thing really puts a lot of pressure on the defenses, and that's been their ticket. But this Auburn game was probably a little bit, at least from a defensive perspective, offense was putrid, but Auburn's offense was putrid. But, the athleticism that Auburn's defense has, they got a lot of young guys, but the athleticism that they have reminded me a little bit of South Carolina. When you watch Auburn's defense and you watch South Carolina's defense, I mean, obviously South Carolina's defense is better. They produce more, but athletically, they're very similar in how they play, especially on the edges. And I think Diego Pavia I feel like he's going to struggle doing what he did against Bama, where he was able to get the edge repeatedly and get those 8-yard gains when you feel like they had him dead to rights. And I think South Carolina is a lot more athletic than that, and they can cover that ground. They can cover for mistakes, and that's what scares me about this defense.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that Carolina's defense is just really strong. But again, I tell you what, one of the biggest things is the strength of this South Carolina team is they turn you over and they take the ball away. And I think that they have to figure out a way to make it even more different and suffocating this time around, because I think they can win the game for sure. Yeah. But this, like you look at Vandy going into that Texas game, they had 2 turnovers the entire year. They had 3 in that game and still lost by 3 points. So it's like, guys, even if you get those turnovers, which is very uncharacteristic, it doesn't mean you're going to necessarily win the game running away. I think the thing that they have to focus on in this game, the most important part of this game specifically, is you've got to put almost like a full court press on the entire game, and you cannot allow these long drives from Vanderbilt to where they are pinning you deep, they're flipping the field. Like, you need to keep this in a half-court basketball scenario where like you are constantly threatening to score, because if you are pinned deep, they play situational football so well and are comfortable doing it. Like Vandy does not get uncomfortable or out of their own skin at any point in the game. They don't get nervous about like I've said this over and over. It's not just the fact that they are calm. They have a great leader at quarterback. They have a great leader as their head coach with Kirk Lee. But dude, they've been playing with house money since the Alabama game. Nothing is going to face
since Virginia Tech. I mean, that's
very, very true.
Yeah, I mean, they've been playing with house money all season long. I mean, that win, bought them, and then they kind of lost almost all of their house money losing to Georgia State. But
that was tough.
Yeah. I know.
I was like a mile and a half away from the stadium and that was happening. I was like, what the hell is going on right now?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is weird. Like, it was 2023 Vanderbilt that showed up to that game.
Yeah.
That was awful. But this game is also going to come down to a quarterback battle. Pavia versus Sellers. We'll get into that next. All right. Chris, LinkedIn, when you're hiring for small businesses, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Have you used LinkedIn Jobs? Have you applied for stuff on that?
I have. It's fantastic.
It is a very good job. And it's not just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open for the perfect role. I know I get those alerts. Hey, you're included in this search. You're included in that search. I'm like, oh, okay. People are looking at me.
Yeah.
Well, in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process even easier. They just launched a new feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. So 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So you need to post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we are back. Welcome in. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. And if you need a second listen and you're coming from my side, make sure you check out Chris and Locked On Gamecocks. And if you're coming from his side, make sure you check out me on Locked On Vandy. And in general, Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy hosts that show. We squad up every Thursday. We get the little 10-person box, and it's kind of chaotic, but it's fun, and it's a great show. So those are some listens there if you want. But Chris, man, this is, honestly, this is going to be a quarterback battle. Diego Pavia versus Lenoir Sellers. I think it's going to come down to that. And honestly, obviously, physically, they're not the same, but I think their styles are relatively the same. And I think that they're both elite runners, tough competitors, great athletes, good leaders. Obviously, Pavia is older than Sellers, so he's got a little bit of that edge on him that Sellers doesn't have quite yet. And they're both developing as a passer, but obviously Sellers, being the age that he is, has a higher ceiling in the passing game. So these two guys are built very, very similarly. But I'm gonna let you talk about Lenoir Sellers here. How does he go out there and take this game and on the road and get this win and get South Carolina bowl eligible?
So I think the words you use, we take that right out of vocabulary, because I think that anytime this young man has gone out there and pressed, that's when we get a little bit of the Lenoir Sellers version of him that has not been successful. And I keep saying this about this program and about Lenoir Sellers in general, which is, dude, in the last 3 to 4 weeks, you've really seen him and the program grow up in front of your own eyes, because this is a guy that, like, you saw it against LSU, even though he only played for a half against LSU. Bad turnovers, like blindside hits that lead to, strip sacks and like in the situational awareness where it's like, listen, you're in a 3rd and 8 and you're on the 30-yard line, can't afford a sack here. You give up a sack. Can't afford a turnover. If you're deep in your own territory, you get a turnover. Like those types of things, Lenoir Sellers really, really struggled with early on in the season. And now you look at it and you're like, man, over his last couple of games, I think he's 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. I will go to my deathbed saying that team should have beaten Alabama. Even more so than LSU. LSU was stolen from you because of the refs. The Bama game, if they played about 3 more minutes, I think they win that game.
Totally.
So I think that one of the things that's positive about this, and this is not something I would have said, a year ago or the past couple of years under Shane Beamer, and it goes back to when I say talking about like growing up in front of your own eyes. Man, this is a team and a program that was 2-10 in road SEC games in the 3 years prior to this year under Shane Beamer. And then you look at this year, and sure, you have a 2-point loss to Alabama on the road, but you blow out Oklahoma, you blow out Kentucky, and they have really turned a corner there. So I look forward to seeing what it looks like in Vandy, because Vandy's not a raucous environment that's going to get you hyped or scared or nervous for your play calls and people didn't hear you. And that's not a shot at Vandy. I know what Nick Saban said and how quickly that got turned around. But it is one of those things where it's like, dude, it's very much a lull you to sleep and then strike when you least expect it situation that Vandy has taken advantage of all year.
Yeah, because it's like a weird road home game for the visiting teams, and it's just a weird atmosphere where you're not really. It kind of almost makes you uncomfortable because you're like, oh, there's like a little bit of noise, like what's going on, like because usually on the road when you hear the crowd cheer, that's usually a bad thing, and when you hear the crowd cheer, it's almost like it sends you in a weird headspace. You're like, oh wait, hold on, are those our fans? No, it's one of those type situations where it's almost confusing. And it's almost disorienting. And Vandy has not been able to take advantage of that until this year. They did it with Virginia Tech. They did it with Bama. They almost did it with Texas. And hopefully they do it here with South Carolina. But Vandy's used to that road environment, and that's why I guess they're finally good enough to take advantage of it. But so for Lenoir, like what has changed? Like, is it just him playing better within the system? Is it Coach Loggins? Is he? That's right, Coach Loggins.
Yeah.
Coordinator. Is he scheming better? Is he getting a feel for Lenoir Sellers? Are they developing an identity versus having one early in the year? Like, what's been the blueprint there?
I'll take credit for it. I had a absolutely scathing episode of Locked On Gamecocks where I was like, I think I pulled out this exact notebook like I always do because I'm a child, and I pulled out like 30 different stats that I had written down of what South Carolina was averaging and where they ranked in the SEC and nationally, and it was bad, man. It was like, Corey, it was you ranked 13th or worse in the SEC in like more than half of them. You were like 20. I think they were 100th or worse in like more than half of them. It was just very bad. You have to also keep in mind, this is on the heels of the Ole Miss game. So you had a week off for Ole Miss. You come back out, you look completely flat. And him and Shane Beamer took them out of that game in the first 10 minutes. And that was very disappointing to see. Now, when they came out to Alabama, the most impressive thing I saw from that game, and then what they've done every week moving forward is, man, Dowell Loggins has been on script one of the best play callers in the SEC over the last month. And that's not a huge sample size. And I'm not saying he's Lane Kiffin or Steve Sarkisian, but from a success standpoint, you saw what they did to A&M. Yeah. You saw what they did a couple weeks ago. And they were like the Alabama game, they came out and dropped back and threw twice on the first drive, which I don't know if that happened all season. Like they had been averaging like running the football. I want to say it was like 73% of the time on first downs. Like it was blatantly obvious. Like, of course, the other team knew what you were going to be doing. They've mixed that up, and now you've started to see some of the things where, like against Bama, that 4th and 9 slot fade touchdown pass they ran that scored to make it 14-7. Well, the next week they play Oklahoma, and they did the same exact thing, but this time they added a wrinkle to it with like a little orbit motion in the backfield, and so now you have that. Now you can start adding in these little wrinkles, and you already have a running quarterback with a really good running back that seems to be playing as healthy as he's played in maybe 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think all of those things have factored in. But again, man, it's really impressive when you think about the fact that name a South Carolina receiver.
I can't.
Right. Thank God. I was very nervous you were gonna own me on that one. And I was gonna have to retract it. But that's the thing. Like they don't have a bunch of guys that have been, all world guys. You thought Nick Harbor would be it, and he hasn't. I tell you what, Corey, maybe the most impressive thing this offense or this coaching staff has done has get them to buy in and get Nick Harbor, who's a track star trying to make the Olympics, a couple months ago, get him to buy in to blocking on the perimeter. Like, it's just a tremendous job and a real good team feel from Beamer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the culture seems like it is at its peak, and for Clark Lee, it took 4 years for him to kind of finally figure out what the winning formula was, as far as he needed to take over the defense. Like, that was long overdue. And the changes he made in the offseason that he made, I think we're finally, because Vandy fans were done with him, and there's still some Vandy fans out there that no matter what he does, they're done with him.
With who?
Right? Clark Lee. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's dude, I don't know if it's Saban's fault or who, but it's so difficult to win for a long period of time. I thought it was awesome that Florida re-upped on Billy Napier. Dude, Clark Lee has done a tremendous job. Like tremendous job.
Tough job. And I think the way the 23 season played out was, not only did they go 2-10, they got blown out just about every week. And it was kind of pitiful, but they had a bad nucleus. I think he was trying to take on a role that he just didn't fit in, as far as being a CEO type coach. And he's a guy that needs to be hands-on. If he's not hands-on, he kind of loses his grip on the program. And he learned that the hard way, unfortunately, and thankfully he didn't get fired. But he called Jerry Kill. That was his second move. And that was probably the best move he's ever made, And the culture of this program is at an all-time high. And with the NIL, that is the potential that Nashville has with NIL, that's huge. That is massive. That's a massive deal. So
I will forever love Clark Lee. Were you doing the show in 2022?
No, I started almost a year ago.
Okay. I remember in 2022, I will love Clark Lee forever for this. Vanderbilt was playing Hawaii in the first game of the year, and there's like no games to bet on that day. And I remember I was like, I'm going to take Vandy -7 first quarter. Hawaii's awful. They're terrible, blah, 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 blah. They're losing the entire first quarter. They score a touchdown with like 22 seconds left to tie it up 7-7. And I remember looking at TV and I was like, the only way that they can even cover this now is if they get like a pick six or a fumble recovery. And as it happens, I think it was that linebacker Orji.
Yeah, Alex Orji
gets a scoop and score with like 3 seconds left in the first quarter. I was like, Clark Lee forever.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, he's done a good job. I mean, that 22 season was good. You could start to see the culture change, and then it took a nosedive, and now it's back up. But like Diego Pavia has been great for them. Just so efficient, so effective in running the offense. I mean, I hate to point to one player, but he's really the reason why they've won all these games. He's kind of got everybody around him. I mean, there's some talent there. The receivers, you can't name a Vandy receiver either. But it's Eli Stowers, it's Cedric Alexander's, AJ Newberry. I mean, I think if they went 22 personnel, they could get in any set they wanted to, and those guys would be versatile enough to do it. Yeah. So that's kind of where that's at. And I think the quarterback advantage obviously goes to Pavia right here, because I think he's just older, more savvy, takes care of the ball a little bit better, more consistently. To me, that's kind of where I see this battle. But how do you see the game? And hold that answer, because we're gonna reveal that next. Yeah. Robinhood, and I'm not talking about the Prince of Thieves. I'm talking about Robinhood Gold. You don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Whew. That's a lot. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Now, Chris, do you play FanDuel?
I do.
Sweet. Well, you can. There's a lot of action there, college football and NFL. with FanDuel's America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So if you were a new user, Chris, and you bet and you wanted to make your one $5 bet to get your 150 in bonus bets, what are you taking?
Yeah, that's dude. And we should do a show on Fridays where you just give out your best bets on how to make that 150.
I mean, here you go. These are mine.
Oh, here we go.
These are mine. I got Vandy plus 3.5. That's supposed to say plus 25 for Mississippi State.
I was wondering, yeah.
This is a typo. Because I think Tennessee's just going to sleepwalk through that a little bit. They're going to win like 20. It's just going to be one of those like lazy blowouts. And then I think Georgia minus 2.5. Sorry, Steve. But if you want to make your $5 bet, go with that. And if you try to bet Mississippi State minus 25, God help you, but I don't think it'll let you do that. I think it just
no. I mean, it probably. We can look it up. Also, that graphic is awesome. I didn't know you could even do that. I will tell you, I love the Georgia pick. That's what I would go with as well. If I had a $5 bet to try to make 150, that's the one. I mean, because you look at Lane Kiffin, man. I think he's 1-6 or 1-5 against top 10 teams in the regular season. That I don't miss. That
7.
Yeah, and that one win is like against number 7 Kentucky 2 years ago. They ended up 7-6. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, when it comes to betting NFL, I don't really bet the teams. I bet like individual props, like anytime touchdowns and receiving yards and things like that. I think those are more fun bets to have. But also, they have live game odds. I do that a lot with baseball. I'll do live bets, live play-by-play. So there's so much more in the same place where you place your bets. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So take Mississippi State plus 25. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. That's my hunch. And make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and college football. All right, we are back, wrapping up the show here very, very soon. We're going to get some predictions. Chris, tell me how or why South Carolina wins.
All right, listen, I love Vanderbilt. I love this team. I love Jerry Kill. Him eating an ice cream sandwich on the sideline of that game a couple years ago in Minnesota, wherever it is, will just forever be one of my favorite moments and memes in college football history.
Yeah,
love this team. I think they're great. I love Diego Pavia. Incredible story. Here's the thing. Carolina has played better on the road than they have at home, which is really saying something. Mm-hmm. I think this game means more to them because the optics of it, even with how good Vandy is, if you beat a top 10 team and you follow that up with a team you've beaten 15 years in a row and you lose to them and it's Vandy, I don't think Shane Beamer and his staff want to hear that. I don't think the team wants to hear it. It's tough to get back up for it. But in the same sense, man, it's like Vandy – I've said this over and over. I feel like they're playing with house money. You brought up the point they've been playing with house money the whole season. And you look at their goals. I mean, what could their goals have been? Like, get to bowl eligibility? Well, they're there. So at some point, I feel like I just keep thinking that they will take their foot off the gas just a little bit because at some point the talent standpoint and everything else that they have has to catch up. And I hate to say that because I have loved this story. It's been so good for college football.
Yeah.
That being said, this is going to be an ugly, muck it up, 24-20 Jefferson Pilot 12:30 kick special.
The three Daves screaming at you.
The 3 Daves. You're talking about hat on a hat, big man on big man football. I got Carolina winning 24-20. I think it's a great game. I think it's two really good schools. I think that it has to matter a little bit more to Carolina. And I think that Vandy finally has, there's only so long you can sprint. You know what I mean? And I feel like at some point they got to get winded. And that's my bad analogy that I'll use.
There you go. So here's the thing. They've had multiple chances to take their foot off the gas.
Yeah.
Big win against Alabama. Their belly is full. They can take their foot off the gas. They don't. Big, near loss to Texas. Again, very respected, but they don't take their foot off the gas. They beat Kentucky on the road. They could take their foot off the gas. Not so much, not so fast. Beat Auburn on the road. This team just doesn't strike me as a team that's going to take their foot off the gas because I haven't seen Clark Lee on social media and when they show these clips before this year, but he drops a lot of F-bombs, just so you know.
Yeah.
he drops a lot of F-bombs. He's very passionate. Like, people thinks he's a cyborg on the sidelines. I thought that way too. And then this year he's been different, but this team is just motivated, right? They don't want to lose another game. And they have a bye week next week.
Right.
So they're looking forward to that. They want to sprint one more game and then they get a break. So it's like you're running that last mile in the marathon. You're like, okay, let's just sprint and push through this. And I'm going to get a break here in just a second, and that's how they're going to play. They're going to play it full steam ahead. And if South Carolina beats them that way, so be it. But they're going to go down swinging. So I see Vandy winning this game like 20-13, kind of like that Kentucky game.
That's
where
fair.
it's like back and forth defensively, and then a couple scores here, a couple scores there. I think field position is going to play a big factor. And I just think it's a more veteran offense than what South Carolina has. And I think that's going to be the ultimate difference. And I think Jerry Kill is the X factor as far as the coaching matchup in that.
Yeah.
So that's why I like Vandy in this game. But South Carolina's been a great story. They've been, and of course the psychology of the 15-game losing streak. They've got that. It's not even a monkey anymore.
Yeah.
It's a full blown gorilla on their back, and they just got to sling that. They're just going to sling that puppy right off there, and they're gonna alleviate that. I
don't love that analogy, Corey, because in South Carolina today they announced that 40 different monkeys had escaped some habitat, and they are urging people in the state to lock their doors and secure them so they can't get into your homes.
Oh, wow. Well, there's about to be one more that leaps off the Vandy's back. So there's going to be 41 of that. So, but anyway, but that's going to do it. If you're missing out on Locked On Gamecocks, you're truly missing out. Chris Marler does a great job. He brings the funk in the SEC squad as well. So check him out there.
Thanks,
it's been
man.
Great, man. We could do this like sometime randomly during basketball.
Yeah.
I
This
think
was awesome, man. I'm glad I got to finally talk to you. I was telling them our show today. I was pissed because we're sitting there doing the SEC squad. They're talking about Vandy, South Carolina, and you and I are the only ones that didn't get called on.
Yeah, we're like, yeah. So here's the extended version. Here's the extended version. So, but yeah, we'll talk about Vandy's point guard advantage. I don't know if you heard about that. They listed everybody as a point guard.
Oh God,
it's just crazy. It's crazy. But anyway, well, if you're going to the game, be safe. And make sure you check on Locked On Gamecocks and Locked On Gamecock guys. People, make sure you check out me over at Locked On Vandy.
For sure.
And we'll see you back here next time. And be sure to follow him on social media. Be sure to follow me on social media. You can find us. We're easy to find on YouTube and wherever you find your podcast, wherever you get them, either on YouTube or any streaming site. So that being said, anchor down.
Go Cox.
And we will see you back here next time. Peace.